We've all had enough of this pandemic, of course. The sickness, the deaths, the worry about hospitals being overwhelmed. You might have lost your job, closed your business and be worried sick about the future. Or you might be working from home and schooling your kids. This thing sucks. The extraordinary economic pain, the way that we've simply had to shut down large parts of our economy to stop the virus spreading. 1 million people out of work in this country, and it's all much worse, diabolically worse overseas, of course. But don't worry, over at Channel 10's The Project, they've found a silver lining.
Remember the climate wars? Yep, seems like a lifetime ago, but since COVID-19 knocked climate change off the front pages, something remarkable's happened. Nature's taken a deep breath.
Get this, LA now has the cleanest air in the world. I know, I never thought I would say that.
The drop in coal and oil use in China have reduced carbon dioxide emissions by at least 25%.
Particulate pollutants have dropped in Delhi by 71% in just 1 week.
With a third of the entire world in some form of lockdown, we've been given a small glimpse of what a healing planet looks like.
Yep, Waleed Aly reckons the clear skies from empty roads and shut down factories or unemployed masses and economic trauma, he reckons these skies are a promising sign about climate change action. As I wrote in The Australian this morning, never mind that carbon dioxide is invisible and that the air pollution you can see, the particulate air pollution, it actually helps to cool the planet. This pollution, these aerosols, deflect and reflect solar radiation and so work against the greenhouse effect and have a cooling effect instead. So on its own, air that looks cleaner will actually lead to a hotter world. As the IPCC itself reports, overall models and observations indicate that anthropogenic aerosols, that is, particulate air pollution, have exerted a cooling influence on the Earth since pre-industrial times, which has masked some of the global warming from greenhouse gases that would have occurred in their absence. The projected decrease in emissions of anthropogenic aerosols in the future in response to air quality policies would eventually unmask this warming. In other words, cleaner air leads to extra warming. Now, we all want cleaner air, of course, but the point is this stuff is complicated. Many of the sources of the dirty air, like cars, factories and coal-fired power stations, also produce much of the invisible CO2. Scientists say that the cooling from less CO2 should double the warming from the cleaner air, less particulate air pollution. But the crucial point is that this cleaner air brings a cooler planet. This is a link that's just overly simplistic and deliberately misleading. They're trying to conflate air pollution with carbon dioxide emissions, and it's very typical of the climate debate. But what about the great economic debate?
For most of the last decade, our leaders have offered us a choice. You can have jobs and growth, or you can have action on the climate, but you can't have both. But if that was ever true, it's certainly not true now. This is a moment where suddenly economics and the environment align.
Hang on, hasn't Ali just shown us that the reduction in emissions he wants comes about from a massive shutdown of economic activity? Never mind the horrendous cost of getting us through this shutdown, Ali and other activists now say it's the right time to punt more billions on renewable energy schemes.
It might have come at a terrible price, but we've been given a chance to future-proof our economy, to lock in emissions reduction and create jobs with ambitious renewable infrastructure projects that make Snowy 2.0 look like, well, Snowy 1.0. Some pre-pandemic modelling suggests that committing to a 2030 target of 53% renewable energy could create up to 59,000 direct jobs and many more indirectly.
Australia has enough wind and solar resources to power the entire world for 10 years. That's the opportunity that exists. High voltage direct current cables to Asia to export our solar energy, and using solar energy to drive aluminium smelting and even creating hydrogen that we can export around the world as a fully zero carbon clean energy.
So, without evidence or reasoning, the climate zealots make the same old outlandish claims about renewable energy, presumably expecting more subsidies to deliver these elusive renewable energy jobs they've been promising for 2 decades.
All its horrors, this pandemic has given us something precious. Proof that when faced with an unseen, intangible force of nature, we do have the ability and the will to make fundamental changes to the way that we live our lives.
Yes, the pandemic has shown us that to fight the virus and stop its spread, we've had to shut down the economy and cause enormous financial pain for millions of people. That's the fundamental change, that we have to live our lives, the way we've had to change our lives. So is Ali admitting that's exactly what it'll take to fight global warming too? Perhaps it's time the project took some time out and shared a few facts with its audience, or even shared an alternative point of view, such as the documentary I showed you last week, the latest Michael Moore-produced documentary, Planet of the Humans, that argues renewables are certainly not the answer when it comes to saving the planet.
They were impressive machines. But is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization? The only reason we've been force-fed the story climate change plus renewables equals we're saved is because billionaires, bankers, and corporations profit from it.
Now, this film says the only solution is reducing global population, and it ignores the potential role of nuclear energy. All the same, it's good food for thought. And the ABC and other Green Left media have been very interested in Moore's earlier films. As far as we've been able to tell, this film is yet to get even a mention on the national broadcaster.